Right, let's tap into our creative sides now as we meet the man who has taught whole nations how to put on their thinking caps. Primetime's Lindsay France got some tips from the inventor of lateral thinking.
I'm joined here today by Mr. Edward de Bono, known as the father of lateral thinking. He's also considered a leading authority in the world of creative thinking and the teaching of thinking as a skill. Hello, Mr. de Bono. Thank you so much for joining me.
Good to be here.
Now, explain to me what lateral thinking is exactly.
Lateral thinking is deliberate creativity. For instance, a workshop once for a steel company using just one of the tools of lateral thinking generated 21,000 new ideas in one afternoon. That's a lot of ideas.
But were they good ideas?
Yes. So it's looking at how the brain works as a patterning system, creating tools, deliberate tools, to become more creative.
Now, do you use this philosophy when speaking to companies and professionals only, or is it also people who are trying to change the way they live their lives?
Business. Interestingly, business is more interested in thinking than any other sector in society.
Government even?
That sounds terrible, but it's true. Now, you may say it's for the wrong reasons, they just want to make more money. Yes, probably true. But in the end, they're more interested than politicians, than educators, than anything else. That's the fact. I've talked in more than 61 countries. My books are translated into 43 languages, and yes, there's a lot of interest in thinking.
So the premise of your lateral thinking concept, is it based on sort of the plasticity of the brain?
No, it's based on something very fundamental. The most important behavior of the brain, most significant behavior of the brain is humor. Humor. And yet no philosopher's ever said that. Why is it important? Because humor indicates a patterning system, an asymmetric patterning system. I'll give you a simple example. An old man of 90 dies, goes to hell. He sees a friend of his, age 90, sitting there with a beautiful young woman, like you, sitting on his knee. So he says to him, he says, "Are you sure this is hell? Because you seem to be having rather a good time." His friend looks up and says, "No," he said, "it's hell. I am the punishment for her." You see, you go along the normal track, you're taking the other track, totally logical in hindsight. So that indicates an asymmetric patterning system, which indicates that the brain uses patterns. That's why humor is the most significant behavior of the human brain.
Would you say also that the repatterning of the brain can help people kick bad habits like smoking and addictions and things like that? Practicing
so much
the
repatterning,
thinking?
it's putting in other patterns. For instance, the husband of my secretary in London used to smoke 50 cigarettes a day. One session of hypnosis stopped completely. That's very powerful. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I know a couple of people that could benefit from that.
Well,
many
you
people.
You tell them.
So what has the reception been to your philosophy over the years?
It's a very good question. And the answer is that some people, some groups show a huge amount of interest. I've been to Russia several times, once for the Academy of Sciences and so on. And interestingly, mathematicians fully support my ideas. I'll give you an example. One of the techniques is provocation. Provocation is you say something which may sound nonsense in order to break out of the patterns and move on. Like a person who'd been to one of my seminars ran an insurance company, and he said, "Po," which means provocation, "you die before you die." That sounds impossible. From that, invented living needs benefits, life insurance. If you get a serious illness, they pay you 75% of the death benefits, the other 25% when you die. That is now almost standard in every life insurance contract in North America. So anyway, logicians and philosophers say, if you say something which doesn't make sense, you can't go forward. Mathematicians say, no, it's necessary. Self-organizing systems reach a stable local equilibrium. In order to reach the global equilibrium, you have to provoke it. And they call it annealing. Like when you're making steel, you cool it down, the crystal is locked in a position which is stable, not very strong. You have to keep heating it up, heating it up, heating it up, till they lock in a position which is stable and strong.
Right.
So often mathematicians say what you're saying is perfect sense. Logicians and philosophers say, no, it can't be right. We don't understand it.
Why do you think governments are so slow to take up this philosophy?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, there's one government in Venezuela many, many years ago. There was a professor of philosophy who read one of my books, got very motivated. He joined the political party, the Copay party. They said, what ministry do you want? He said, I want a ministry for the development of intelligence, which he became. He then worked so that my work was introduced into all schools in Venezuela. They invited me over. I taught 250 teachers. They picked up experience. Then they taught 107,000 teachers, and by law it's at every school, which is a one man. If you get one man in government who's senior enough, who sees the point, then things happen. If you've got to talk to committee after committee, nothing happens. So I was in China recently, and we were discussing putting my work into 680,000 schools in China. The University of Beijing has been doing research on my work in school for 9 years, very positive results. So for all China's thinking, then better watch out.
Mr. De Bono, thank you so much for joining me today.
Pleasure. Pleasure.